BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, it's Anna Hill here with the Farming Today podcast. This time, as a heatwave hits, farmers tell us what they do for crops and livestock to combat the conditions.
Well, pigs have one or two disadvantages in heat. They don't have any fur and they can't sweat. So we provide shade for them in the huts, wallows for them so they can make mud to put their own sun cream on, and ad lib water supply.
We'll have more on that just a little later. First, though, all week we've been exploring the role of seaweed in farming, and today we're focusing on seaweed farms and the planning process for allowing them to go ahead. High in nutritional value, seaweeds have been used for centuries as a food, feed and soil enricher. Traditionally harvested from the wild, in the last decade there's been an increasing number of commercial seaweed farms being established. In 2016 there was only one commercial seaweed farm in the UK, now there are more than 10. Anyone proposing to build a seaweed farm in England and Wales has to be granted a licence to operate by the Marine Management Organisation, the MMO, and also secure a lease from the Crown Estate, which owns the seabed. But seaweed farms aren't always popular with local residents. In North Cornwall earlier this year, a campaign by the group Save Our Bays resulted in one application being refused and the other withdrawn. Fiona Clampin met Barnaby Kay, who campaigned against the proposal.
So we're on Portquin Beach, which is a tiny old fishing village on the north coast of Cornwall. And just around the corner from where we are now, just at the mouth of the bay, 500 metres from the coast path, was where there was this proposal for a 100-hectare seaweed farm. It's 140 football pitches, we worked it out as. There would be 2,500 boys, and there would be 14 yellow marker buoys, 8 of which would have flashing navigational lights on them. We did oppose that. This is an area of outstanding natural beauty, and there's no doubt that that would have a detrimental effect on the vista of the bay.
You would have been able to see it from the cliff, but the visual aspect, that wasn't your main objection to it.
We've been accused of being NIMBYs right from the very beginning of our campaign against the seaweed farm here, but the problem was that we weren't consulted. There was a consultation in November 2023 which we were just completely unaware of.
So what were your objections to this seaweed farm then?
There are inherent problems in the application to do with the infrastructure and the impact on the environment. To hold 100 hectares of infrastructure in place, you need a great deal of weight, and that equated here to 33,000 tonnes of concrete on the seabed. And also in that infrastructure there's 358 miles of plastic rope. To us, it's plastic pollution waiting to happen. We feel that it isn't the right place and that the market isn't ready for it.
Barnaby Kay, we approached Biome Algae and Camelfish, the applicants for the proposed seaweed farms, but they didn't respond. Further up the coast in North Devon, seaweed farm operator Alga Pelago secured a licence in Bideford Bay. Head of Operations and Research at the company, Luke Ansell, told Fiona Clampin that consultation and researching the most appropriate site are crucial to any application.
We're looking for a large licence area, so we've got 116 hectare licence area. We need quite a lot of space for that, so we've spent a lot of time looking at areas with low spatial conflict, because that's, especially in England where we've got very busy waters, that's a big constraint on getting a new seabed area leased. And so North Devon and out in Bideford Bay, especially 4 miles offshore where we are, there's not a lot of other marine activity going on there. And then engaging with all the relevant stakeholders was also key. So we had good dialogue with the North Devon Fishermen's Association from the beginning. We did get asked to move the site, I think, a mile north, because we were in one of the regular trawl lines of one of the fishermen, so that wasn't a problem.
How concerned are you by the success of some of these campaign groups, like in North Cornwall, where 2 applications for seaweed farms haven't gone through?
We think it's really important to address some of the queries about how the farm interact with the marine environment with really good data. So we're running a 4-year research programme. We've got a PhD student on board who's looking at what are the impacts of the seaweed farm as we scale it up on water quality and crucially biodiversity. So how does it impact what's living in and around the farm? What are the positives and what are the negatives? It's an open source project and we're not going to shy away from whatever the negatives might be of that, it's really important to consider it so we can take a knowledge and data-based approach to scaling these farms up around the country.
Luke Ansell from Alga Pelago. Temperatures are climbing across the UK, with the official threshold for a heatwave likely to be crossed in some areas in the coming days. The high temperatures will peak in different areas on different days, and in some of those areas, farmers have also been contending with a lack of rain over the last 3 months. Well, let's hear first about the situation for crops. Andrew Blenkiron is Managing Director at the Elvedon Estate on the Norfolk-Suffolk border. They grow a lot of root vegetables and cereals, and he told me they've just started harvesting their salad potatoes this week.
Potatoes and crops generally have been, irrigated crops have been doing really well in the bright sunshine, so long as we can make sure we give them plenty of water. And I did just look up, and this crop of potatoes we're lifting at the moment had well over 150 millimetres of water applied to it so far this season, so quite a considerable amount. That's, in old money, that's 6 inches, I think, something like that, so that's significant.
So they're drinking quite a lot, aren't they? What about the other root veg? I know you've got onions, carrots.
Yeah, onions they've had about 60 millimetres of water, and they're growing really well. They sort of target of having the 8 leaves by the 21st of June. They're very much on target for that. Carrots, we grow late harvested carrots, so we've only just finished planting them actually. And for the first time, I think maybe ever, if not certainly for a long time, we had to irrigate the field to plant the carrots.
What about wheat and barley cereals? Are they suffering because of the lack of rain and the heat?
Yes, they are. Starting with the winter barley, we gave that sort of 30 millimetres of water in the middle of April, and that kept it going really well. And it looks as though it's quite full of promise, although we're probably budgeting 20% yield reduction on that over our 5-year average. The spring barley is really, really struggling. So, and indeed, we have the effect called the Breckland swale or the Breckland stripe, which shows up, and it makes it very obvious the areas of the cereal crop that are particularly dead. And when you put the drone up, you get some very pretty crazed patterns. But of course, it does demonstrate that the cereal underneath that soil or in that soil type has been badly affected and will yield next to nothing almost.
Well, that's interesting, because someone sent me a picture of some wheat in the Brecklands, and it really looked like it had it was yellow, the leaves were yellow, but it actually looked like it had crashed over.
Yeah, but it can have that effect, which has a significant impact on yield. We had 5 millimetres of rain here in March, 15 in April, 16 in May, and so far in June we've probably had about 15, 16 mil. So probably I would suggest that's less than a quarter of the average. So we started irrigating very early here, sort of the second week in April, which is unheard of. And obviously we've had to keep going at it. So there's been a valiant effort by the team here to keep the crops watered and ensure that they'll maintain their quality.
Does the heat make farming more difficult, not only for the crops, but also for farmers as well?
Yes, of course. Well, we've probably all got nice suntans this year. That's the one positive. Won't need to go away to top up our tan anywhere. But it's a real challenge. Like you say, people are not just in an arable situation, but there's a great number of livestock here, and we're having to cart water to them, make sure there's plenty of water, plenty of shade for those animals. So it's a pretty pressurised time. No doubt there's people getting up very early in the morning to ensure that the animals are cared for.
Andrew Blenkiron there. As he said, any farmer with livestock has the animals' welfare at the front of their minds. Indoor animals such as pigs and poultry have to be kept cool, and for outdoor stock it's a question of providing shelter from the sun and plenty of water. James Keith runs the Organic Pig Company. He has around 1,200 outdoor organic sows producing 400 pigs a week. He told me pigs and heat waves are a difficult combination.
Well, pigs have one or two disadvantages in heat. They don't have any fur and they can't sweat. So they're not naturally adapted to extreme heat. So we provide shade for them in the huts, which we open both ends, and in tents we can lift the back flaps to allow a through draft. We provide wallows for them so they can make mud to put their own sun cream on, and ad lib water supply, so they've always got plenty to drink. So they've got shade, hopefully a through draft, and some mud to wallow in. So that's how we try and help them.
Just tell me a bit more about the water then. How do you organise that for them to have a drink?
Historically, outdoor pigs all used to be fed out of a wallow trough, which one pig would be trying to have a drink and its mate would then climb in it and think it was having a bath, which was never very hygienic. So in the last 10 to 15 years, most outdoor units have gone on to multiple nipple drinkers on large tanks. So we have a ring main of water coming off boreholes or even the mains into a 500 or 1,000 litre tank, which is very often on stilts now to hold it up. So the nipples at the bottom of the tank are at the right height for a pig to drink from. So they've always got access to clean water.
Do animals grow more slowly when they're too hot?
They get less hungry, so they lose their appetite, and so they would just lie about. So yes, their feed conversion would drop because they're not growing as well. Extreme heat can cause distress, and no animal grows well when it's in distress or under stress.
Can it be good news having nice, warm, sunny weather for pigs?
Yes, it's very good news for the people who work with them. So the stockmen like it. They're walking around in their leather shoes and their shorts and their big sun hats. It's a nice environment to work in. Pigs probably grow better in February when they stay in their little warm tin huts and huddle up to each other, and that's when they probably grow their best. But the stockmen, it's a real challenge to work out there when the rain is horizontal, biting cold, your hands are freezing, and it's a pretty miserable existence. But in the summer, it's a nice place to be.
Now, I know you also make fountains, but that's partly to fill up those wallows, isn't it? Pigs are so wonderful, aren't they? Their piglets are very playful, aren't they? Do they play in the fountains?
Our older piglets, still suckling on their mum, would have access to a wallow, and they love it. They on a hot day, they're in and out of there, and they're running back to their huts, and then they run back to the swimming pool again.
Sounds like they're on holiday. And finally, what's worse for you, drought or heat?
The biggest problem if it's very dry is the electric fences don't work so well, because the pig, when he stands next to the electric fence, doesn't earth so well because he's standing on dry sand. And that can create an issue. But extreme heat and loss of water supply, it would be our biggest worry. In the winter, if it freezes, the demand is so much lower, we can cart water round to them, and that's not such a difficult job. But in the summer, if you have a problem with your water and you get behind, you've got to cart water, you can't really catch up fast enough as the pigs, because there's so many of them. Pigs demand so much water.
James Keith there from the Organic Pig Company. Do let us know how you're dealing with the heat on your farm. You can email us. We're farming.today@bbc.co.uk, and on X we're at BBC Farming Today. Now, tomorrow, sun hats and sunscreen will be out in force at the Royal Highland Show. Do join Charlotte Smith, who'll be bringing you all the news from just outside Edinburgh. That's all from us today. I'm Anna Hill. The producer was Beatrice Fenton. Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.